Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 352. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about bobbies and palaces and the tube as we go to London, England.
Cathedral, got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into this week's interview, I do have three news stories for you. In the first one, the mayor of Chicago has some problems because that new $99 million contract for custodial services at O'Hare Airport may have been given to a company that has ties to the mob. Chicago labor ties to the mob? That's unheard of. And speaking of unheard of, if you're flying Cathay Pacific, you may know that they are known for their great service, but that may change because the flight attendants in the near future will not be giving you drinks nor even smiles, and this is their form of a salary protest. In news closer to home here in San Jose, there was a party last week at City Hall with the mayor to celebrate a new route to Japan, to Tokyo's Narita Airport, flown by ANA, All Nippon Airways, and I bring that up because I'm going to Japan. Stay tuned till after the interview for more news about a possible Tokyo meetup. I'd like to welcome to the show Amber from AmericanTourGuideInLondon.com to come to talk to us about London. Amber, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here.
And Amber, I'm going to guess that you are an American. You live in London and you work as a tour guide.
Absolutely. A Texan, to be exact. I've lived and worked in London for about 12 years now and started tour guiding officially about 2 years ago. And I absolutely love it. I see London from a completely different perspective than somebody who lives here.
And my understanding is that everybody in Texas longs eventually to move to London. Is that correct?
Well, it might be in my case, and in the case of my husband. We are both from Texas. This is just home to us. We absolutely love it. We both had always wanted to live here, and had the opportunity, the fortunate opportunities in our work to do so. And in being here, it just feels like home. Of course, we'll always be Texans in our hearts and we go back and visit, but definitely London is home for us.
Excellent. So there's obviously a lot of different ways to see London. So this will be really how to see London if you're from Texas tour.
How to see London if you're from American. I don't specifically go for Texas. I'm just American in general. In particular, I love working with people who've never been to a foreign country before, and London is their first stop.
And that's quite common. That was our first stop. Well, not counting Canada, which is, I understand, a foreign country. But obviously, a lot of people go to London first because that's where the plane lands, and England first because they speak the same, well, more or less the same language as we speak. So
Sometimes I tend to call London the gateway drug to Europe. People tend to try London out. Oh, they speak English, and yeah, that might work. And we do that. We're familiar with that. They got the royal family there, and yeah, that works. And hey, we managed to survive London. Now we can go to Paris. So it's definitely what I call the gateway drug.
And you've just described our first trip to Europe. It was, in fact, no, sorry, it was the second trip to Europe, but it was a trip we went with a friend, for instance, who we talked him into the trip because of London, and it was Paris that he fell in love with. So
yeah.
Excellent. So what would you recommend to somebody? Let's say that it is our first trip to London. Let's tackle that first. Where would you start?
The first is to get the basics down. London is actually made of two different cities. It's Westminster and the City of London. And in Westminster, that's where all of the big stuff, the Trafalgar Square and Downing Street and the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben and Buckingham Palace. You've seen European Vacation. Those sites will all be very familiar, and they're in there. And it's great. But then there's the City of London. And the crown jewel there, of course, is St. Paul's Cathedral, and then just on the outskirts of the city is the Tower of London. And those are the big gems that everybody likes to hit. But then I say, if you have the time, you sort of hit that the first day or two, get sort of your surroundings going, and then really dive into, well, what am I really interested in? Am I a lover of art? Do I need to hit the National Gallery? Or do I really want to go into this royal thing and just see more, and maybe go into Westminster Abbey and see where all the kings and queens were crowned and that sort of thing?
Okay. Let's do that a little slower and start from the beginning. So let's start then in Westminster. So as we tackle Westminster first, and we get off the tube because we're not so crazy as to try and drive in London.
Good. That's a good thing.
Which stop am I getting off at, and what are we seeing first?
I would love for you to get off at Charing Cross Station. It's a beautiful old station, and you come out of the tube. You go in across the street and you're immediately in Trafalgar Square.
Okay.
Trafalgar Square is gorgeous. It has some great views. It is directly in front of the National Gallery. Mm-hmm. But while you're in Trafalgar Square, you have the opportunity to look down Whitehall, and you see a statue of Charles I, and then you see all the way down to Big Ben and the clock tower. And it is truly amazing to sort of take it all in right then and there.
Excellent. And of course, the statue in Trafalgar Square is the hero of the Battle of Trafalgar.
Yes, the statue at the very top, that is Horatio Nelson, the man who helped us win I say us, even though I am an American, helped us win the war against Napoleon. A fascinating character, Nelson. He was a very boastful character. And of course, he only had one eye and one arm, and he died on his boat with his men. There's a wonderful story about how they put him in a barrel of rum or brandy and sort of preserved him so that they could get him back to the shore for his proper burial. But they forgot which barrel, so they continued to drink with him in death.
That part of the story I did not hear.
Yes.
And then we also have one of the Christopher Wren churches there right on Trafalgar Square. We have the St. Martin in the Fields Church is right there, built by Christopher Wren after the Great Fire of London.
Yes. And Christopher Wren, of course, the serial church builder of the 1600s, especially if you do head into the City of London, you will just be bombarded with Wren after Wren after Wren. St. Martin in the Field, a fantastic church, a very active church. What I love about it is the concerts that they provide. Amazing music at an extremely affordable price. It's always a really nice way to spend an evening, especially if you've decided maybe theater's not for you. It's really nice to hear the acoustics of the church.
And then you mentioned we're right in front of the National Gallery. Still free?
Still free, the National Gallery. And I love the National Gallery. I think it's a wonderful treasure, but I have to say, just around the corner if you're facing it on the right side, is the National Portrait Gallery. That one is more my favorite.
Interesting. I have not been there.
Oh, it's amazing. The reason I like it so much is because of all of the history lessons that we take when we're in school in America and you hear about these famous people. The National Portrait Gallery has taken all of the photographs and the paintings of these people and hung them in chronological order. So you can go right back to way before the Tudor times. I forget exactly where it starts, but you've got the kings and the queens and the consorts, the important men. We have Erasmus, the painting of Erasmus. He was the famous tutor to King Henry VIII, right up all the way through the 1700s. And you hear about wonderful people such as Isaac Newton, and you hear about John Rennie, the architect, and Isambard Brunel, all the way through to modern times. Paul McCartney, the Queen, Diana. So you've got this wonderful history of British famous people right there for you.
Excellent. Anything else we're going to do here in Trafalgar Square, or is it time to hit the road?
We're going to hit the road and head down Whitehall towards Big Ben and Parliament.
Okay. And we're walking?
Actually, I'd like us to take a bus.
Okay.
Luckily, we have these new buses in town. We've had lots of bus issue over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and they have 2 of the old route masters still left. The number 15.
And you say the route master, we're talking about the double-decker red bus that you can ride up on the top on a nice day. Well, on a day that's not so bad, at least.
Well, no, they're all covered.
Okay.
They are, but it's the double-decker bus that has the stairs and the open back end.
Okay.
So you can sort of hop on and hop off when it's stopped, of course, very carefully. Safety first. But yes, so if we hop on the number 11, it will take us down to Parliament Square. And we'll be able to, of course, see the fantastic Big Ben, which is in the Elizabeth Tower. That's recently been renamed in honor of the Queen for the Jubilee year.
So the parliamentary clock tower is now the Elizabeth Tower?
Yes, it is.
I did not know that.
Yes.
And Big Ben actually being the name of the bell that tolls the hour, as I understand.
Correct. That is correct. Yes. Yes. And so we have the Elizabeth Tower, and then the other side of it, that sort of square tower, that's the Victoria Tower. So you have that on either side of just a beautiful Gothic building, Gothic style, I should say, built in the 1800s, but in a Gothic style for sure. And while you're in Parliament, Parliament Square, it's always nice, of course, to zip around the corner to that lovely church, Westminster Abbey. My husband and I used to not live too far away, and the first year we were there, we would say, "Oh, let's just hop down to the local church for Christmas midnight mass." So,
now I'll have to say, Westminster Abbey, just for people who this may be their first trip to London, my wife hated Westminster Abbey, and in part she hated because she didn't know what she was getting into. She thought she was going to see a church and not an indoor graveyard. And there are so many famous people buried in Westminster Abbey, and she wasn't ready for that. She didn't expect that was, in fact, what she was going to be there to see.
Well, I would say don't hop into the Abbey unless you really want to spend some time there. You really want to see what it's all about. If it's just a matter of, oh, we want to just say we've been there to say we've been there, have a look on the outside at the architecture and the beauty of the building itself, but you may not want to spend as much time inside as, let's say, somebody who knows that all the poets are buried there.
Right, and Poets' Corner.
Yeah, Poets' Corner. And Elizabeth and Mary are both buried there. They're buried next to each other, which is quite interesting.
Elizabeth I, obviously, and...
Oh yes. Get the numbers right. Yes,
and Bloody Mary, who had kept Elizabeth in a tower for many, many years.
Yes, a lovely sisterly thing to do.
One being Protestant and one being Catholic, being the big problem, and then being half sisters.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's quite interesting. When Henry VIII died and his son took over the throne, he wanted to keep it Protestant like his father. Unfortunately, he died at a young age, and it was Mary, of course, who took over and immediately went back to the Catholicism of the day. Again, like you said, very, very tumultuous, very turmoil. But when, of course, when Elizabeth came to the throne, she's very famously said that she did not want to look into the souls of man, and it was basically an opportunity to say freedom of religion, almost in the sense that I'm not going to peer into your heart, and you may worship as you will. However, she maintained that Protestantism was going to be the religion of the day.
It was almost the don't ask, don't tell version of Protestant Catholic ending of the hostilities there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Excellent. So we're at Westminster Abbey.
Yes, we're at Westminster Abbey, and if we decide we're not going to go in, what we're going to do is cross over and sort of wiggle around the pavements and into St. James's Park, because this will give you a different approach to Buckingham Palace, where you can kind of come at it through the park as opposed to down the Mall from Charing Cross. So you come through the park, which is very beautiful. It's lovely. It's laid out.
And you say down the Mall. Not everyone knows what you're talking about.
Yes, the big stretch of road that goes from Buckingham Palace all the way to the end is the Mall. You would read it as the Mall, but it's pronounced the Mall. And it is, of course, where if you watched the royal wedding and you saw the procession of carriages down the road, that is that long stretch of road right in front of the palace leading up to it.
And of course, if you were there for the changing of the guard, then that's obviously where the horse guards will come down from their barracks at the other end of Pall Mall to Buckingham Palace also.
Yes, definitely. I like to sort of stay on the path in St. James's Park, looking sort of to the left at Buckingham Palace from afar. It is quite majestic. You do have the statue of Queen Victoria in front of you, and in front of it, in between you and the palace. And it's quite nice to sort of see it from afar. To be honest, whenever a ceremony or an event is not taking place, it literally is just this big majestic building built by John Nash, sort of there, and there's always an opportunity to go and get your photo taken. So it's really, while you can see it from afar, if you're not going to sort of make the way down, take the photo, and then come back, it is quite nice to continue on down the road that you're heading across the Mall up to St. James's Palace, which is just on the left. That's quite nice.
And St. James's Palace, a 1600s palace. I think this is the palace of Henry VIII, as I recall.
It is. Originally a leper hospital, leper colony. Leper hospital was on the site, and he took over and had a palace built there. And I like it because it has a crenellated rooftop, so you can see an oldie worldy feel. It is a medieval building, so it's beautiful, and it has that look and that appeal of when you think of what an old castle might look like. You can see that in St. James's Palace still.
And in case crenellation isn't a word that jumps rapidly to everyone's minds, we're talking about the top of the towers and the top of the walls has portions that stick up and portions that come back down so that you can shoot your arrows and then hide behind the other parts. So yes. You can almost picture the arrows being shot, and then, what do we think? Are they there? Did we get them? Oh, let's go again. Here we are. Yes, so I can see that happening. Although, 1600s, I guess you'd be shooting your musket or your arquebus, but you get the basic idea.
Yes, the basic idea. Yes, of course. I recently, it's so funny because I always come across things that I just didn't know. And there's the Queen's Chapel in St. James's Palace, and it's not open to the public unless they're having a service. So every Sunday morning at 11:15, they have a service, and you can go and attend as a member of the public, which is quite exciting.
Because this palace is still one of the royal palaces, is it not?
It is. While Charles and Camilla have their residence at Clarence House, which is where the Queen Mother lived, his grandmother. They have their offices at St. James's Palace, and also the office staff for William and Harry are there as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So once we sort of get our photo taken with one of the guards that's usually standing there, and sometimes if the guards are not there at St. James's Palace, the guard hut will be vacant, and you are able to go and stand in there and get your photo taken with you sort of standing there very still as if you were a guardsman, which is quite nice. As you're heading up St. James's Street, this is a very interesting street indeed. On the right-hand side, we have a very old store called Berry Brothers Rudd. It's one of the oldest wine stores in the city, and it's a wonderful place. If you're looking for a lovely bottle of wine, you can go in there, and many monarchs have purchased wine, and obviously being so close to the palace right there, a great place to go. Just on the side there of Berry Brothers Rudd, there's a little alleyway, and if you look, there is a very small plaque to the Texas legation, and this marks where a building once stood that was in fact sort of, if you will, the Texas Embassy of London.
And this is before Texas joined the U.S. then?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Those
interesting.
years when they were their own little country, they had their own little legation, which is sort of ambassadorship to the Court of St. James. And it was there. And so we have a lovely little plaque there, which is quite nice. As you head up the street as well, you'll see these wonderful buildings, and some of them are gentlemen's clubs. And when I say gentlemen's clubs, I don't mean in these sort of nighttime, no windows, nice girls and silver poles type of gentlemen's club. I'm talking gentlemen's clubs where, I was trying to be nice there. I'm talking gentlemen's clubs where gentlemen would go and they would be members and they would have cigars and smoke brandy and discuss political events and do business in the time of 1800s in particular. And one of them is Boodles. This is where the Earl of Sandwich was very hungry, but did not want to leave the gambling table. And so he said, could somebody please bring him a bit of meat between two pieces of bread? And voila, we have the sandwich.
Excellent.
I say that we're on St. James's Street, and so we're heading up to Piccadilly Street. And if you're on Piccadilly, you may as well go into Fortnum and Mason, which is a fantastic shop in Westminster, where the Queen's household shops as well, but they have a fantastic selection of, it's not really designer names per se. There are some designer names in there. If you wanted to go to a Selfridges or a Harrods, you'd see sort of all of the main designers out there. But Fortnum's has a wonderful house brand that they offer, and wonderful things like jams and teas and coffees and stationery and wonderful, beautiful gifts. There's about 5 restaurants in the store as well. They are very known for their window displays. They have beautiful window displays, and it's also a wonderful place to have afternoon tea. One of my favorites, actually. My husband and I tend to go around the city and try out as many afternoon teas as possible, and Fortnum's is the one where we tend to repeat. Oh, we should just go to Fortnum's again. It's lovely.
And so this is the usual tea and scones with clotted cream and little tiny sandwiches without the crust.
Absolutely. There is something called high tea.
Mm-hmm.
So if a little later than the afternoon slots and you wish for something a bit more substantial, you can order what's called high tea. And that's where you can get something like an eggs Benedict, an eggs Royale, which is instead of ham, you get smoked salmon. That's my favorite. Or you can get Welsh rarebit. I used to always think that they were saying Welsh rabbit. And it's literally a piece of toast with some mustard and Worcester sauce and cheese sort of grilled, and absolutely delicious.
Mm-hmm.
A nice fancy grilled cheese sandwich. So that's sort of a mini tour of Westminster. What's interesting, Chris, is that if we were to take that same initial stop of Charing Cross and get out the tube and head the other direction and go east, a completely different city altogether. We would head up the Strand,
Mm-hmm.
and heading east, you'd see the Strand, and you'd see the first of many churches, St. Mary le Strand, which is another Wren church right in the middle of the road. The taxi drivers have dubbed it St. Mary in the Way. And another church that is the parish church to the Royal Air Force. A wonderful church that has some significant bomb damage that you can see on the side. There's sort of pockmarks out of the stonework that they decided not to fill. It's an extremely poignant thing to see, and it never fails when I'm on a bus how I can go by that church and look at those pockmarks and just remember the fact that that the Blitz was very real and not so long ago. Continuing on, then beyond Clement Danes, we now enter the city of London, and our first big stop is on the right, a building that to me looks like something out of Harry Potter, perhaps Hogwarts, but it's the Royal Courts of Justice, a beautiful Victorian building that has wonderful sort of steeples and pointed domes, and it's just absolutely miraculous. And when you think about it, it's where people go to get divorced, and the Levinson inquiry is currently taking place there. And just, but a beautiful building in which to do justice. Moving on from there, we head up Fleet Street, and Fleet Street is such a fascinating street with so much history. And this is where the publishing
Mm-hmm.
sector in the industry really took off. And you can conjure up images of printing presses and couriers and people rushing to get the news out and to spread the word. I recently went on a tour that was specifically geared towards the Civil War history and was able to find the two buildings where the southern and the northern papers were created and published and written. It's quite interesting because they're literally right next door to each other.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so very interesting. It's actually right around the corner from St. Bride's Church. St. Bride's being one of my favorite, if not the favorite, steeple that I see whenever you look out onto the vast skyline of London. You see this wonderful steeple, which is said to have inspired the wedding cake. My favorite. It's absolutely gorgeous. The reason we have a tiered wedding cake, of course, is because of this steeple, St. Bride's. Moving into the city a little bit further, crossing over what used to be the River Fleet and into, I guess, more of the heart of the city, you come upon St. Paul's Cathedral in all of its glory, Sir Christopher Wren's masterpiece, and the work, and marvel at this. They cleaned it a few years ago. They finally finished this long preservation and cleaning process, and it just gleams. And when you think about it, we can see it in full clarity, especially when even if when it's a gray day, but especially when it's a lovely clear day. It's just there and it's majestic. And you think, wow, without modern machinery, however did they do this? And you're able to really take in its beauty. And mind you, back when it was being built, they couldn't see it for the smog. So it was quite interesting that we get to see it in all of its glory, and it was very different back then. But to be able to walk around that building and really take it in, you do have to pay to go into St. Paul's. And I like to recommend that if you're wanting to save a little bit on admissions, maybe you're not so interested in the complete exploration of the cathedral. My suggestion is to go in when they're having a service. They have one almost every day, and then they also have special ones throughout the week, or concert service. And to be able to hear the music, to be able to hear the acoustics, and just sit and marvel. It's a fascinating building, probably my favorite.
And then you can also climb up in the dome and get a lovely view of the city.
Oh, absolutely. Although, while you can do that, just behind, across the street from St. Paul's Cathedral, is a building called One New Change, and it was built by Jean Nouvel very recently. And it has a sixth floor observation viewing deck that you can go out to, and it's absolutely free to go in. It's a little shopping center, so you can go in there and go up to the sixth floor, and not only will you get wonderful views of the city, but St. Paul's will then be there in the view as well.
View, right? Yeah. Excellent.
We're skipping ahead, but we're talking about places to view and see the city of London. My absolute favorite is always still the Monument, which is to the Great Fire of 1666. Now, a lot of controversy in this. They say it's built by Sir Christopher Wren. However, in recent times, it's been sort of proven and researched to find that it was actually built by his colleague, Robert Hooke, to do experiments on. Because when you look through the column itself, on the inside, there's a wonderful stone spiral staircase going all the way up, but there is a space where they could drop and use it as a telescope to the top. It's quite interesting. I'm doing a lot of research on Hooke and astronomy and sort of what they were doing back then. He and Wren, they were very good friends. It's, I think, 3 pounds to go up, 311 steps, but well worth every step.
And the monument being where the fire of stopped.
Yes, the monument, when you lay it on its side, it touches the location where the fire began on Pudding Lane.
Oh, began, sorry.
And yes, began. The monument was meant to be. Christopher Wren, again, had this wonderful plan and idea that, we'll just rebuild London. We'll make it like Paris, and we'll have big boulevards. And just like they have the Arc de Triomphe with all the boulevards coming out from it, we'll have the monument with all of the boulevards coming out from it and whatnot. That was the big plan. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way because, well, it was September, October, it was getting colder, and you had all these people that didn't have any homes. So they definitely needed to just build as quickly as they could. So this big plan of Christopher Wren's never happened. The only thing that did get built in that was the monument itself. It's funny, when you go to the top of the monument and you have this amazing view and you come back down, they give you a wonderful little certificate saying that you have climbed the monument 311 steps all the way to the top. And you flip that over, there is this wonderful reproduction of the plan that Christopher Wren had for the streets of London.
Interesting. Now, I think, as I recall, it's St. Paul's, just from the Whispering Gallery to the top is like 365 steps. So either one is a pretty good, breathtaking view, as you would.
If you do want to go a little higher, then you can go south to London Bridge, where we have our brand new Shard building.
Oh, right.
Which has been completed, and they have a viewing platform. I feel it's a little pricey. It's £27 a person, £25, something like that. But they say it's absolutely breathtaking. You can get up and see all of London around there. I'm not really sure if it's still the tallest building in Europe. It was going to be superseded like 10 weeks after it had been completed, so by something else. So, but still a very tall observation tower indeed.
Okay. Whither do we go next?
We're going to go north. We're going to walk through Paternoster Square, which is just right there on the corner of St. Paul's Cathedral. We're going to head north. We're going to pass Christchurch Greyfriars, which is part church and part garden. It was one of Christopher Wren's buildings that had been bombed during the Second World War, during the Blitz, and they decided, we're not going to rebuild this. Instead, we're going to make it a green space. And so what you see is, you see the steeple and you see the tower, and then you see 3 walls. And then the rest of it in this sort of hull, what would have been the nave, is now a garden space. And there are benches and these wonderful contraptions called insect hotels. What they're trying to do with the green spaces of the City of London is really promote, not only for people to come out of their buildings and sit and get a bit of fresh air, but also for the insects to come to the city and pollinate and share the love of pollen and trees and flowers and things. So we have these wonderful little insect hotels that encourage a bit of wildlife right there in the city, but it's a very calming and wonderful place. We're just going to walk by that, enjoy it, and then head on up through the little alleyways around to Smithfields, and in particular, come upon St. Bartholomew the Great. Have you been to St. Bartholomew the Great?
I have not.
One of the oldest churches in the City of London. And by the City of London, I mean the square mile area that was originally surrounded by the Roman wall. So just that small section of London, of the city.
The original Londinium.
Yes, the original Londinium. St. Bartholomew the Great was founded by Rahir in 1123. He was the court jester to the king, and he decided to go on a pilgrimage to Rome, as many often did back in the times. And he went to Rome, did his pilgrimage, and while he was there, he was very ill, and he was praying that he got better, he would create a church. And he says that he had this vision that he would, from St. Bartholomew, to build a church in Smithfield, which is what we call it today. He returned to England and built St. Bartholomew's Church. fantastic church, and it has these wonderful Norman archways. Now, you say you've not been in it, but I bet you've seen the interior if you've seen the movie Shakespeare in Love,
Ah,
or if you've seen the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral.
hmm.
It is the movie, it's the wedding where Hugh Grant's character is getting married and he gets punched in the face. And he falls onto the beautiful black and white checkered floors, and they come up and you can see most of the church at that point. But absolutely wonderful, but a fantastic building. It was massive. It was this huge complex in its day. They had a printing press in one area. It was huge. It had a school and everything. And then they started selling bits off, and the printing press area came about. Some of the churches today do this. They have a section of church where they need to sort of use it as office space for somebody, or they'll sell it to a Starbucks or whoever it may be. Back in the day, it was sold to a printing press, and a printer worked there. And one of his employees was none other than Benjamin Franklin.
Hmm.
So nice little American connection there. And while we're at St. Bartholomew, I think we should go up through Cloth Fair, which is a lovely little street heading towards the Barbican station. Now, Cloth Fair, again, an interesting place, because this is where the Great Bartholomew Fair went on for 400 years, actually. It was a time when it was almost like Fashion Week of the day, where all of the textile makers and the people from Europe would come over to sell their wares and show off the new prints and the new textiles and the velvets and taffetas that they had available. It was a big fair that was opened by the Lord Mayor of London. And it was opened in a ceremonial cutting of the cloth, which is where we, nowadays, when we open a new building, we usually pull a piece of ribbon across and get the shears out and cut it with some scissors. And that's exactly where we get this one tradition, is from Cloth Fair.
So, and I'm going to interrupt at this point. We've got a lot to talk about in London. As people may be aware, there are a lot of things to do, and we've only scratched the surface. I think what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up this segment, and then I think we're going to invite you back in a couple weeks. And what I'd like people to do is send their questions about London, and we'll try and address that in maybe a month when we do a second part on London. But while we still have you here, we've covered quite a lot. And of course, we haven't even left downtown. I mean, we've still got so much of London around us still at this point. What else, though, to wrap up this segment, should we know about London before we go?
One of the great things about London is that you can tailor the city to what you are interested in. So you get here, you maybe hop on the big bus and you go around and you see all the big sights and you think, oh, okay, that's fine and great.
And when you say the big bus, that's a particular brand name of a hop-on, hop-off tour bus.
Yes, it is. You can do the original London bus tour, or you can do the big bus. I recommend the big bus just because I used to be a big bus tour guide, and out of the two, I like that one the best.
And I think the guides are funnier on the big bus. Let's just go right out and say that.
It's the open top bus.
Yep.
With you can sit there.
The brown one.
Exactly, the brown one. So once you've done that, you then can choose whatever you like. If you're interested in war, you could get into the Imperial War Museum, the Churchill War Rooms. You can go to the Britain at War Museum. There's just like war everywhere. There's all sorts of things to really soak up that knowledge. If you like architecture, you can look at all the buildings and go on a building walk in particular and check out all the churches and see the architecture. If you're interested in archaeology, there's of course the British Museum that is amazing, and that 3,000-year-old guy with the nails and the hair just gets me every time. I love him. If you're interested in the royals, you can do some royal spotting, and the great thing with Twitter now is that the British monarchy will tell you, oh, so and so will be here today at this particular time, and so you can go and check it out. I had some tour clients recently who said they wanted to do some royal stalking. You can royal stalk. If you're into the Beatles, you can immerse yourself in the Beatles and pop culture. That's the best thing about London. It can become your city.
Food. The first time I was in London, the reputation of London as a culinary capital was fairly poor. Now, this is 25 years ago or so at this point, but that has changed somewhat.
Yes, it has. Britain has, well, it's become proud of their food, and with the likes of Jamie Oliver and Nigella and some of the people out there, the chefs out there, they've decided, oh, okay, no, what we have is good and we can make it taste really great, and they do that very well. The thing about when you're traveling is that sometimes you don't want to spend a lot of time eating. The great thing is the British, what do they have for lunch most of the time? A sandwich. And when you go into a shop, the sandwiches here are, as an American, you're thinking, really? They put those things together in a sandwich? Ooh, that's a bit weird. So you can have that sort of on the go sandwich thing and be very British at the same time.
And what sort of things are we putting in a sandwich that I'm thinking are so weird?
I think tuna and sweet corn is a weird combination.
You have me there. Okay.
They'll do an egg and watercress.
Okay.
There's something called coronation chicken, which was developed in 1952 for the Queen's coronation. That makes sense. And it has sort of a chicken mayonnaise curry mango thing happening.
Okay.
Is really good. Brie and cranberry is a popular one. I used to eat that quite a lot, actually. And then if you're going for sort of, okay, we're going to have a traditional pub food tonight, then I would suggest pie and mash. Always a good gastro pub is what you're looking for.
And we say pie and mash. Are we doing a shepherd's pie at that point?
It'll be like, think of an individual pot pie.
Oh, like a meat pie. Okay.
Like a meat pie, yes.
Got it.
But you can pick up a steak and kidney. You can do venison. You can find lamb. Lamb is very prominent on the menu here. It's a very affordable meat. And so you see a lot of that. The pie and mash, they come with one of two things usually. You can choose what they call gravy or liquor. Gravy is a brown sort of gravy sauce that we're very familiar with. And then liquor is this sort of clear parsley sauce. It's a bit thinner than a thick gravy. It's clear, and it has these parsley flakes all in it. And it has an herby flavor as well. Very different, very tasty. Another suggestion on if you're not going for pie and mash, something quite interesting called toad in the hole.
Oh, toad in the hole. Okay.
Basically sausages. Those are, I guess there would be the toads, if you will. And then in the hole is where they take a lovely batter, almost like a popover batter or a very light batter that makes a spongy sort of, not biscuit, but
somewhere between a biscuit and a pastry.
Yes, a biscuit and a pastry, a savory pastry, and they pour that into this little skillet where the sausages have been grilling, and the heat and the grease from the skillet then cook the pastry around the sausages, and then you can add gravy on top of that. It's very lovely. I like that.
Sort of a British pigs in blanket.
There you go. Exactly. Now, I am a foodie and I absolutely love food. I say that if you're here on a Saturday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes a Sunday morning, you can head over to Borough Market. Market food is really great in London, and Borough Market is just near London Bridge Station, and it's where really Londoners go to do their shopping. And instead of going to a superstore, a grocery store, sometimes we tend to go to markets. It's just, you have like a farmer's market, if you will. And this is
I've been up to Camden Market.
Yes, exactly. Camden Market is one of them. Greenwich Market is great, but Borough Market is really nice too. And you can go there and have all sorts of different types of food, things to eat. They have something there, raclette, which is where they take a massive wheel of cheese and grab flames and just throw it on the edge, and it sort of melts the cheese, and then they scrape that onto a plate of potatoes and pickles. It's quite delicious. I'm getting hungry just talking.
And pearl onions, usually, if they do it the Swiss way.
They do it the Swiss way. So again, it's not a traditional British food, but it's definitely a traditional thing to do in London is to eat at a market. I will say, being a Texan and living in London, I do miss real Mexican food. There has been an explosion of Mexican food on the London scene, and you have a variety of things. So you've got everything from what I call Baja Mexican food, which is sort of the stuff that you're probably familiar with, Chris, because you're being from California and everything, where it's that sort of kind of clean street food, if you will, where
lots of cilantro and onions and
I say it's very clean because Tex-Mex, we have all those really heavy sauces,
Hmm.
and there are a few places I've found that do a nice enchilada with a good mole or a nice sort of sour cream sauce. That's yeah, I'm all about the sauces, but Mexican is up and coming.
Excellent. It's about time.
Yeah,
It's really funny. It is one of the cuisines that has taken the longest. It's most popular here and taken the longest to spread. So,
yeah.
and London is expensive.
It, yes, yeah.
Can be. Suggestions or tips how to save some money in London?
Ah, my again, I go back to the sandwiches. Plan to have a lunch on the go that is very affordable. There are places such as Pret a Manger, which
Sure.
is
Hmm.
a French place called, it means ready to eat. Pret a Mangers are little sandwich shops that you can hop into and you can get a hot wrap, you can get a sandwich, you can get a bag of chips. Even still, you can hop into a Marks and Spencer, a Sainsbury's. Those are the grocery stores in the areas, and grab a little picnic for yourself and for your family if you're traveling as a group, and throw it all in your backpack and then have that while you're out and about. Breakfast is usually comes in with a hotel, so I'm kind of skipping over breakfast, but there's always a Starbucks or a Cafe Nero. That's another coffee chain here, and that you can grab a something quick. But I love the sandwich thing. It's very light, and there's always a place, whether it be a park or a bench, where you can just sit and have a quick bite. Sometimes you can even, if you're clean about it and if you're very low key about it, if you're going to hop on a double decker bus and you're going to be traveling a long way, that's an opportunity to kind of quickly get that sandwich down you as you're on the go. And then I would plan for a menu, an evening menu that has some a 2 or 3 course option. Lots of restaurants will do 2 courses or 3 courses for quite an affordable rate, anywhere from 10 to 16 pounds, and that's nice because you're getting more than one sort of big dish. However, Pub Grub, the gastro pubs where you can go in and you can have a nice meal for around the 7 to 9 pound mark. It's not too bad. If you hop up out of the tube, there's going to be the tube out of the underground. There's going to be places right there on your doorstep. Have the opportunity to walk around a little bit, and this is where my husband and I usually go for the granola bars to keep us satiated if we're starving, or plan it out ahead. Another big tip I have: Pizza Express. Everywhere. The locations are amazing, and they have a wonderful app, and they have fantastic deals, and I've never paid full menu price for Pizza Express. So go on to Google ahead of time and Google Pizza Express voucher, and more than likely you will come up with something that gives you 2 courses, or buy a pizza and get one for 2 pounds or whatever it may be. So you will never be paying full price for pizza, and the pizza is delicious.
Excellent. And that sort of leads into a whole conversation we could have about London with kids, but we're not going to do that this time. But I would love to have you back. Are you willing to come back on the show in about a month and do a second part on London?
Oh, I think it'd be great. I'd look forward to it.
Excellent. And I want people to send in questions. We have barely touched museums. We have lots of things we can still talk about on London. And in the meantime, Amber, where can people read more about your travels and more about London?
If you're on Facebook, I'm American LDN is the Facebook page, facebook.com/American LDN. I'm the American Tour Guide in London. You can go to my website, americantourguideinlondon.com, and I'm on Twitter. That's at American LDN.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I love London, and as we're talking, I'm falling in love in London all over again, and it was hard for me not to jump in every other sentence and say, oh yes, and you could also do this, and you could also do that. So we're going to do this again. And again, people, please send the questions. Amber, thanks so much for coming on and sharing with us your obvious love of London.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to coming back.
In news of the community, as I alluded to in the opening of the show, I'm one of 2 bloggers who've been named blog ambassadors for ANA for this new route from San Jose to Narita Airport in Tokyo. And so I'm going to Japan for the first time. So I could use your help in 2 ways. One is I'm interested in any suggestions you have on what I should see in Japan, especially in the Tokyo area. And then also, if any of you are in the Tokyo area, I'd love to get together. We can coordinate that on the Facebook community, facebook.com/amateurtraveler. This is a bit of a long episode, so we're going to end it here. If you have any questions, feel free to send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. I am looking for your London questions and suggestions, especially before that second show in January. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chris2X, and as always, thanks so much for listening.